today I have a great guest on because we're going to talk about something that really, really hurts a lot of businesses because they don't really understand it, and that is their credit and their credit score. So, we have an amazing entrepreneur on that does a lot of great work in that space, and she's going to tell us about this cool report that they have on their website. So, you definitely want to stay tuned for the episode. Welcome to another episode of the Finance and the Accounting Show. This is the place to go for small business owners. If you're looking for a great way to understand the finance and the accounting side of your business, you're in the right place. So stay tuned and enjoy the episode. So without further ado, let me bring in Bethany Finch. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Terrell?
I am great. I am great. Now, as we were talking before we hopped on the camera, I mean, you are in the beautiful scenery. And for people who are probably watching from wherever they are when this airs, tell us, what part of the country do you usually operate in? Or are you traveling through right now?
So we're actually 100% remote. So we travel wherever we want, when we want. And so today I'm actually in Kissimmee, Florida. And tomorrow I will be in Daytona Beach.
Nice, nice. I think it's like, no matter what time of year you're watching, when people hear about being in Florida, people just get jealous, period, because Florida seems to have, a fun, great weather all year round.
Yes, it definitely does. And you can tell the difference. Like we're from Washington State normally, and right now it's very cold and wet there, and they just got a bunch of snow. And the attitude of folks, right, is totally different than people that are here, right, that are out and about and going and not cold. And it makes a difference.
I will say, I was laughing with someone. I was like, I've lived in like many different places from, like Chicago to DC to living in the Carolinas and living in Ohio, even living in South America. And I'm like, when the weather changes, it really does impact the people's mood a lot.
It certainly does. It certainly does. And you can see why places like Alaska, people don't understand, but they pay their residents to leave during those dark, cold months. They literally give them money, so much money per family member to leave and go and come back.
Nice, nice. Well, before we jump into the details about, the credit hacking and all the resources that you have there, I wanted to tell the audience a little bit, tell us a little bit about your background and just kind of what you were doing before getting into, like credit hacking and the great entrepreneurial things that you're up to now.
Well, so I've been actually an entrepreneur for about 25 years. And during that time, we were busy raising our family and just trying to figure out a way to make ends meet. And, kind of started as a side hustle, and it just continued to evolve. And then I added one business and then added another business and then added another business. So we have about 5 businesses right now. Um, but each time it was because of a different season of our life, right, and the needs of our family. And so that's how things kind of evolved. But it's always evolved around multifamily. It's always evolved around real estate. And the credit side of it has just become a means to an end, because so many business owners, just like people in everyday life, have debt. And we have no idea how to, sometimes even get out of it. Well, we know it's necessary. And so it just feels like it's just part of the game. And you don't understand that there's ways that you can actually overcome that. And so when we earned our financial freedom, it was life changing. And we just wanted to be able to tell as many people as possible, because you don't realize the stress you're under when you have financial burdens that just weigh on you. And when you're sick, you get up and go to work even when you're sick, because you have to pay those bills. But if those bills were paid for and you didn't have to worry about it, it would totally change your attitude, your perspective, your family life. So yeah, that's what we've been busy doing for the last 25 years, teaching a lot of it. I've done a lot of teaching through the years, and my background is actually business and accounting, believe it or not.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. And I would say, for those of you that are watching, you can confirm this. And for those that are listening, let me fill in the gap. So She said that she's been doing this for about 25 years. And just based on the way that she looks, I would say she probably started when she was maybe around 5 or 3.
Nice. Yes, thank you very much, Terrell. Very fun. No, I did start younger than most. I did start my entrepreneurial in my, let's see, that would have been 20s.
Gotcha, gotcha. Awesome. Well, one of the things that I find to be, very interesting for our entrepreneurship is, that level of experience, because that becomes a huge, huge win. Just the fact that you've been able to, be on an entrepreneurial journey for, more than 5 years, because the average business owner and average entrepreneur doesn't survive past 7 or 5 years. So the fact that you've been doing it for a while tells me a lot, that you've learned a lot, you've adjusted, and you've had to make a lot of adjustments as the market and your business change. So that is a huge thing, and congrats for that.
Yes, it is very, very true because the most of the time, if I just got up and kept going, it would have continued to grow on its own. But most of the time, we go through our lives and we have these ups and down cycles, right? So sometimes you're working really hard and sometimes you're not working as hard. And a lot of it is just showing up. I just kept showing up and just kept showing up and didn't give up no matter what. My family, I always looked at it like my family was always counting on me. I was always trying to figure out a way to pay those bills and to keep, my family in a better situation than we were. So it always just kept, nope, I just got to keep showing up. Even if I didn't know what that day looked like or what it was going to happen, I just kept showing up.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Now, I want to dive a little bit more into, something we talked about kind of before we started, the camera rolling and everything, whereas, we talked about a lot of entrepreneurs that get into business don't realize like how important their credit will be to that journey that they're starting. And even some that have an idea to say, hey, I know credit's important. I have my credit, I have a good credit score, but one of the things we were talking about, sometimes like they still can't actually, utilize that credit or to get the funding they need. So as you begin to teach, what do you think starts to cause some of that misconception for people where they think their credit is really good, but then when they start working with you guys, they realize like, hey, there's some improvement that needs to happen here.
Oh, yeah. So honestly, I think the biggest thing is it's not being taught in schools anymore. Back in the day, now you look way younger than me. So when I was in school, one of our requirements for one of our class, everybody had to like have a fake budget and learn how to balance, make a budget and have a checkbook and learn how to write checks and pay bills. And that was one of the classes that you had to do. It used to be called home economics. Now it's not even in the existence anymore. But that was the life skill class, right? And you had to learn how to, they didn't touch ever talk about credit even then. So credit was just starting to become something later on. And these were times when my parents were paying 20 and 25% interest on their mortgage. I mean, ridiculously high numbers that we can't even fathom right now. So that debt was huge. And that's all they could do. Now we've got a house and a car payment and sometimes two car payments, right? And then you have medical bills if you have a family, and if you're starting a business, there's always startup costs. So those bills and expenses add up. And so people don't see a way out other than, well, I can afford to pay $10 more a month. Oh, I can do that because it only cost me $10 more a month. And they're not playing the long game. They're just playing the right now game. Right now, I can afford this. Right now, I can afford this. And so when we stopped and looked at that, we realized how crippling that was. Early on in the business, I started very, very, very small, $0, and started because we ended up having to file bankruptcy. We literally had everything wiped out, and we still had a car payment because we kept the car, but we had to pay everything else, and we had to start over. So I had to figure out how to pay bills with nothing. So that's where I started the business. But then in doing that, okay, I could trade my time for dollars. So I built a business around that. But then as that grew, I wanted to start another business. Well, then I needed money. So then I acquired business debt, right? To start the next one. Now, granted, my business is paying for itself and it's paying those debts, but it's over time. I didn't realize the cost of that and how I could actually take that money that I'm paying to those banks and to those lenders and put it right back in my pocket and still get my debt paid off. I didn't know that. And it's a numbers game, 100% numbers game.
Wow, wow. And I think that is very exciting. And I will say you're speaking my language because my core business is accounting and finance. So I offer bookkeeping and CFO services. So we're for my own selfish geeky reasons, we're gonna dive a little bit more. I want to dive a little bit more into that. I mean, for you in realizing that, what was the kind of the light bulb that helped you realize, like, hey, you know what? I can get these debts paid off and put more cash. Like, what was it that triggered that for you? Or how did you stumble across that, understanding or that revelation?
So my background is also finance. So early on, when my family was younger, right, we needed every dollar of my husband's paycheck and we needed every bit of it. So I figured out early on, I ran certain businesses at a loss to get those deductibles, right? So it was like a kind of writing on the paper, and I'm trading dollars for here. I'm basically taking tax dollars out that I don't owe here to give it back to me. And I no longer let the IRS be my savings account. And so I'm like, no, wait a minute. If I had that money in my pocket instead of them having it, and then I have to wait for my refund, right? So then once I started seeing, okay, if I get more of it back here, what else can I do to get more? So then I started investigating, well, wait, businesses gets the most write-offs. Okay, so what kind of business and how does that look? And so then I started investigating that part of it. And part of my investigation led to costly education. So then I have education debt, right?
Mhm.
So then okay, I'll start my flipping business. So I started a real estate flipping business. Well, how many flips do I have to pay off that real estate debt? And still have my operating costs that I've got going on. So then, although we paid off 150,000 within the first year, right, very very quickly, we still had accumulating debt and regular debts going on. So I looked at that and went, okay, wait a minute, what interest am I paying that to that debt to that lender, and how much is it costing me? For instance, if I can invest my money at 20%, but it's only that debt's only costing me 5, I kept the debt, right? Because I can make it more than I am. And so the debt, but when things were flipping, because the interest rates went a little sideways and different things, and some of our credit lines got jacked up during COVID and things, I'm like, wait a minute, nope, time to flip the scales, right? So we actually have an entire system. And this is the amazing part of it. It's like 20 accountants working all at the same time. So that system, I'm able to put in all of our debts, static and dynamic. So our monthly debts, right, the ones that never change, right, our monthly internet bill and things like that, as well as our overall credit debts. So this is the dollar amount on this credit card, but you can change how much you pay that each month. So that's a dynamic debt. Then I can say, okay, I want this much in reserve, and I know I'm going to have to pay X this much out this month, in quarterly taxes or whatever. I put all of this into my system. This is the amazing part. And then the computer has all the algorithms planned and programmed in there so that it knows daily interest rate calculations based on all my credit cards, right? Based on those lender debts, right? All those notes that I was calculating in my head. Okay, it's better here, da, da, da. It's doing it all for me. So I don't have to. And then it literally says, okay, you're going to pay this credit card on this date and you're going to pay this amount. You're going to pay this into your savings account and you're going to leave it there for X amount of time. And then you're going to transfer it to pay this card. And then you're going to do this. And I don't have to do any of the thinking. It's plug and play. So it is night and day. The stress is off and my bills are getting paid. I'm not bringing in any more money. It's the exact same amount of money I'm regularly building and going with.
Nice, nice. I absolutely love that because, one of the things that I tell, a lot of people watch this show and even, our clients is, yes, my firm, we provide bookkeeping and CFO service, but, finance is more than just, what your accountant can do when you get into, things like how do you raise your credit score? Like, as you said, it gets into the algorithms of not just, hey, just pay this off. Sometimes there are specific ways of going about paying it off. And so, one of the things I'm curious, as people get introduced to the system that you guys have that, really embeds the algorithms and give them more specific instructions, what's some of the responses that people have when they finally see what your system can do?
So some people who've actually thought about their debt, right? They might overall have, say, $100,000 in debt. And they just did quick mental math. Okay, if I pay an extra $1,000 a month, it's going to take me 10, and they're figuring out the months or years it'll take them in there. Then the next step is, how am I going to get that $1,000 a month? So when we show them, they don't have to make any more money. They don't have to go get a second job. They don't have to go start delivering pizzas. I love Dave Ramsey, but the last thing I need is one more job, right? So how do I figure out how to do this with what I already have, right? And that's the beauty of it. The moment they see they don't have to make more money than they already are, and it's going to save them time and thought processes, it is a no-brainer and they are ecstatic. Then when I show them, and it's like, okay, are you ready? You ready? I'm going to hit the button. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm going to show you how fast your debt's going to be paid off. Now we do the mental math and we show them, okay, based on your scale, how long will it take you? Well, the average mortgage is a 30-year mortgage, right? So if you spend that out 30 years and then in the meantime, pay between $200,000 and $500,000 in interest to those banks, right? Over that timeline, we're showing that even with a 30-year mortgage in their system, how they're getting it paid off in 5 to 7 years. All their debts, 100% debt free, 5 to 7 years. Now I tell them, okay, in 5 to 7 years, now instead you take that money and you start rolling that into your savings or your retirement account. Now that 2 to 500,000 that you need for your retirement is there, and
Wow.
you're not
Wow.
making any more money. You're not doing anything different. You're not living differently. You're not drastically up changing. I mean, it's absolutely life changing, because now those folks that really, like ourselves, that go out and really work in their communities and help and want to build orphanages and help when, like, we have disasters that strike and want to go take the time off, they have money in their bank account to go do that. It's
Nice.
life changing.
Nice. I love it. I love it. And it is such a topic that I think entrepreneurs and business owners, I think, really have to wrap their mind around, because we've done probably over 400 interviews on this show, and one of the things that I constantly hear when talking to entrepreneurs off screen is that there's so much focus on, hey, how do I grow the business? How do I grow the business? And then we'll have an honest conversation about, okay, what do your personal finances look like? And it is a mess, to where you're spending so much energy growing your business that most of them, they just don't have the energy to, or the mental space to really invest and figure out what's the strategy in my personal life. And
Right.
some of them, unfortunately, have ended up selling their businesses, and they celebrate this huge win in their business only to come back to this mess in their personal life. So I think that is awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the cool thing, is that we can show this, and we with our system, we're able to put it, we can set it up for your business, we can set it up for your personal. We can set it up for both, whatever the need is. And the great thing about that is, now when you have a plan in place, now you're just working your plan, but now you have an end goal. Now your mind and your eye is focused on something. You feel more purposeful, you feel that direction, it shows in the rest of your life. You don't feel like you're aimlessly at the whim of whatever the life throws at you. It changes people 100%. It changes their perspective. It changes their attitude towards life. They feel like they can actually handle what life is throwing at them in a whole different way, because now, oh no, I'm good. I got savings. Oh no, I'm good. I got that taken care of. Nope, I don't need to stress and worry about that. I mean, it's absolutely freedom, which is why we call it financial freedom, right? And that's the thing that we just don't spend the time on that we need to, for sure.
Awesome. I love it. Now, so if people are hearing this and they're excited about it, so where can they find you guys online?
So our website is americanmadehomesolutions.com/investors. For those of you that are ready to make really good double-digit returns in real estate, thankfully you can do it passively. You don't even have to go do the work. You don't have to do the flips. You don't got to do any of that. That's the beauty of our multifamily and those opportunities, as well as the credit hacking. We have a free download that we're happy to share with everybody. immediate things that you can do right now to improve your credit score. Many people don't even realize how a credit score can impact them. But if you're getting denied any kind of loan, it's not always based on your credit score, but it is oftentimes the first thing they look at. And our credit hacking program that we teach and talk people through is we literally show them things that they can do right away that can not just improve their credit score, but get them approved for loans, for a business loan, a new mortgage, a refinance, even a refinance. People can't, they're like, but I own my house and how come I can't get a refinance? And it has nothing to do with the fact that they own their house and pay their bills.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Well, before we wrap up, one question that I always love asking, every guest, well, actually, I got to take a step back. I have two more questions. First one is, we've connected, found each other through Raise Masters. Can you tell me a little bit about, like, what has your experience been like with the Raise Master organization? How has that kind of played a role for you in as your journey has developed in, real estate?
So for us, the Raise Masters is an amazing mastermind group of people learning how to capital raise. Our focus at American Made Home Solution is building sustainable growth within all of our communities. And to do that, we need to not just build our business, but empower other people's businesses. And a lot of times we can do that through capital raising. So for us, it is 100% a plug and play system. I didn't have to do any of the brain work. Hunter Thompson has done an amazing job with systemizing it and trial and error testing, and this is what works, this is what doesn't, and do this, don't do this, do this, don't, which is exactly what I needed, right? I needed the plug and play. So for me, the mastermind group of that aspect was unbelievable. But it's also a network. It's a mastermind. So it's a network. So when we had a huge kick in the gut, right? It was okay, guys, lost this one. What did I do wrong? Help me how to fix this. What do I do next time so I don't repeat this mistake, right? You have a group of people that are already going through the exact same thing that you get to learn from each other. They're in the same space. I don't normally go, and folks that I meet or I hang out with aren't necessarily in the same space that I'm in. They're not necessarily building businesses. My friends at church definitely are not necessarily building businesses. So it's not in the same scenario. And so it's an opportunity for me to have that peer networking and to have that support that I need as an entrepreneur. It can be a very lonely space.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, the final question that I want to ask is, what's two pieces of advice that you would leave with other entrepreneurs? And it could be something that you've already said that you want to reiterate, or it can be a brand new point.
Two things that I would leave. I would say the first thing is don't be afraid of debt, because debt is just a tool, and there's good and bad debt, and it is just a tool. And many businesses would have never got started if they were afraid to have debt. Too many times people kept saying, I'll save it, I'll save it, I'll save it. And when I have it, then I'll do it. And then they never do it. So don't be afraid of debt. It's just another tool. But I think on the flip side of it, we also can't be afraid of money. So many times, especially as a Christian, we hear, money is the root of all evil. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible actually says the love of money. There is a difference between my attitude towards money and loving it and just seeking it and idolizing it and going after, versus it's just a tool that I'm utilizing. If I pull out my debit card, I don't love my debit card just because I'm using it, right? There's a difference. And so when we recognize and have a good attitude towards money and keep that in the perspective, we no longer limit who we are and the capabilities. So the dreams and the things that we want to do, like for us as a business, we want to have the passive income coming in so that anytime there's disaster recovery, like right in Arkansas right now, we want to be able to pick up and just go and be there and not have to worry about the finances. So for us, we have to have a different attitude towards money, because we need to know that it needs to come in without us working for it. We need to change that thinking of trading time for money. And so for us, it's having the right attitude towards money. If you do those two things, you're gonna be pretty successful in most any of the businesses that you go out with. Seek the education by all means, because if you don't have that, get the education. We were willing to pay for our education, and hand over fist. We hit the ground running and we haven't stopped.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, Bethany, thank you so much for being an amazing guest on the show. It has been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, Terrell.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Finance and Accounting Show. If you like what you heard, don't be selfish. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and then share this with a friend, because you know a business owner that could definitely use this insight. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend, and turn on the notification bell so you get all the updates when we release a new episode.